Let me tell you about that fateful Wednesday when the cyclone ripped through Harrington Ranch, like the devil himself had come calling. I was there, you see, not as a central figure in this tale, but as old Jeb Harlan, the grizzled foreman who'd seen more Montana dust storms than I cared to count. But this wasn't no ordinary blow. This was a monster, twisting and howling across the Bighorn Basin, uprooting fence posts and scattering cattle like autumn leaves. The air tasted of dirt and fear, and in the heart of it all lay Luke Harrington, pinned beneath the splintered beam from the collapsed stable, his chest slashed open by jagged wood, blood pooling in the mud around him. Luke's eyes, sharp as a hawk's even in pain, weren't fixed on his wounds or the wreckage. No, they were locked on Maria Rossi, that fiery Italian widow who'd blown into our lives like a summer breeze just 3 months back. There she stood amid the chaos, her dark curls whipping wildly in the dying gusts, barking orders to the ranch hands with a voice that cut through the thunder's echo. Move those horses to the corral. Tie 'em down tight. Boys ain't no time for dawdling. Her accent wrapped around the words like vines on a trellis, thick and melodic. Born from the sun-baked streets of Naples, she was no fragile flower. In that moment, she was a force, rallying us all with a determination that made even the toughest cowboys snap to attention. I watched from the edge of the barn ruins, my hand clutched in gnarled hands, as Maria dropped to her knees beside Luke, her fingers, steady despite the tremble in her breath, pressed a torn scrap of shirt against his gash. "You hold on, Mr. Harrington Luke," she whispered, her broken English laced with urgency. "Doctor come soon. You strong, like mountains here." But Luke, his face pale under the grime, reached out and caught her wrist, his grip weak but unyielding. "Don't go, Maria. Not now. Not ever." His voice was a rasp. Raw with more than just pain, there was a desperation there, a plea that hung heavy in the air, thicker than the dust settling around us. You could feel the weight of it, that unspoken scandal brewing like a storm on the horizon. The town's tongues had been wagging for weeks, whispering about the cattle baron and his immigrant housekeeper. In these parts, where the land was as unforgiving as the folks who tamed it, lines were drawn clear as barbed wire. Who belonged where? Who could love whom? Luke knew it might drive her away, this budding romance of theirs, fragile as a newborn foal in a blizzard. But as I helped the boys clear debris, I couldn't shake the thought, could love really buck the rigid codes of this frontier? Or would it crumble like the stable walls? To understand how they got here, I gotta take you back to spring of 1890. When winter clung to the Bighorn Basin like a bad habit, frost nipping at the heels of every dawn. Luke Harrington, widowed these 5 long years since Sarah succumbed to that God-forsaken fever, had carved out a 10,000-acre empire from this rugged land. His hands, calloused from roping steers and mending fences, had built it all. But his heart, that remained as barren as the snow-swept plains, frozen in grief. I'd been with him since the early days, watching him bury his pain in work, talking more to his horse, old Buck, than to any man. That's when Maria Rossi showed up, answering an ad for a housekeeper in the Bighorn Gazette. She stepped off the stagecoach in town, her valise clutched tight, eyes wide at the endless sky that swallowed everything familiar. An immigrant widow from Italy, fleeing the ghost of a shipwreck that stole her husband and child on the crossing over. Her English was halting, seasoned with sorrow, but she cooked like she'd been blessed by Saint's pasta dishes that warmed the belly and soul. Floor scrubbed so clean you could eat off 'em. She moved through the ranch house like a shadow, apologizing for every breath she took, as if her very presence was an intrusion. For nigh on a month, Luke barely noticed her. He'd grunt a morning over coffee, his mind on cattle prices and water rights. But one brutal thunderstorm changed that. The sky cracked open that night, lightning forking like angry veins, rain pounding the tin roof like gunfire. I was hunkered in the bunkhouse, but Luke, restless as ever, wandered to the kitchen and found her there at midnight, sleeves rolled up, kneading dough with fierce concentration. Tears streaked her flour-dusted cheeks, mixing into the mix like silent ingredients. "Can't sleep?" he asked, his voice gruff but not unkind, leaning against the door frame. She startled, nearly dropping the bowl, her dark eyes flashing with surprise. "Sorry, Mr. Harrington. I'll make bread. For morning, storm. It remind me of sea. The ship. It break. Take my family." Her words tumbled out, broken but poignant, painting a picture of waves crashing like the thunder outside, of loss that echoed in every rumble. Luke paused, something stirring in that iced-over heart of his. My Sarah, she used to hum old hymns during storms, Said it kept the fear at bay. He pulled up a stool, pouring them both coffee from the pot on the stove. They sat there as the wind howled, sharing fragments of their shattered pasts, the slow agony of watching Sarah waste away. Hers the sudden, violent theft of everything she held dear. It wasn't love, not yet, but a fragile bridge built over coffee steam and shared silence. By dawn, the storm had passed, and on the table waited a warm loaf of olive bread, studded with herbs from her small garden patch. Its aroma drifted through the house like a promise, a whisper of hope in Luke's lonely world. As summer thawed the basin, turning the plains golden under endless blue, Luke started inviting Maria to the main table for meals, not banishing her to the back kitchen like hired help. "Tell me about Italy," he'd say over steak and beans, his blue eyes softening as he listened. "Rolling hills, like here but softer, greener," she'd reply, her voice gaining confidence, a soft smile curving her lips. "I miss the sea, the salt air, but Montana, it big, wild, promise new life, bigger than old one. Maybe here, I not just survive, I live." Their conversation stretched like lazy afternoons, hands brushing over past plates, lingering a beat too long, sparking a warmth that filled the vast emptiness of the ranch house. I saw it budding, those stolen glances when she refilled his cup, the way his shoulders relaxed in her presence. But the basin wasn't kind to tenderness. It demanded toughness, and Luke's grief had armored him well. Until June, when a sudden outbreak of cattle fever swept the herd, felling beasts left and right, and then it hit Luke, confining him to bed with raging chills that shook his frame like a leaf in the wind. Maria nursed him without a word of complaint, brewing herbal teas from recipes her nana had passed down, bitter and strong, spooning them past his cracked lips. She'd sit by his bedside, reading aloud from faded newspapers, her accent wrapping around the words like a lullaby. On the worst night, as fever dreams clawed at him, he murmured in delirium, "Stay with me, Maria. Don't fade like the others." Like Sarah, she pressed a cool cloth to his brow, her hand lingering, whispering, "I am here. Luke, always. You not alone no more." When the fever broke, leaving him weak but alive, clarity washed over him like a clean rain. "Maria," he said one evening as she cleared his tray, his voice steady now, "I ain't felt this way since before. But folks in town, they'll talk. Class lines run deep here." She met his gaze, her eyes dark pools of understanding and fear. "I know. In Italy, my family poor fisher folk. We know place. But heart not care about lines." The whisper started soon after in Big Horn Town, that dusty crossroads where everyone knew everyone's business. Mrs. Harlan, my kin, bless her sharp tongue from the bank, was the first to notice Maria's upgraded calico dresses. Finer than the housekeepers ought to be. That Italian girl's aiming above her station, she'd mutter over tea with the ladies' circle, her pince-nez perched on her nose like a judge's gavel. At the Mercantile, owned by grizzled old Sam Thorpe, stares followed Maria as she picked out flour and thread. Men leered with crude curiosity, women sneered behind lace gloves. Branding her an opportunist clawing her way up. Luke confronted it head-on one Sunday after church, pulling me aside in the yard. "Jeb, you hear the talk?" I nodded, spitting tobacco juice into the dirt. "Hi, boss. Folks say she's got ideas, but hell, life's too short for their nonsense." He clapped my shoulder, but Worry etched his brow. "To Maria." He was fiercer. "Let him talk. You're worth more than their narrow minds." Yet she fretted, confiding to me one afternoon while hanging laundry. "Jeb, in old country, love cross lines bring shame. Here, same. This is the West." "Maria," Luke countered when she voiced it to him that night on the porch. Stars wheeling overhead. "We make our own rules." He took her hand then, pulling her close. And their first kiss under that vast sky was like igniting dry tinder, soft at first, then fierce, sealing their defiance against the gathering storm of judgment. But tensions escalated at the July summer fair, a raucous affair with fiddle music and lantern light chasing away the dusk. Luke escorted Maria openly, her in a sapphire gown that hugged her curves like a lover's embrace, drawing shocked silence from the crowd as they entered the dance hall. Whispers buzzed like angry bees. Harrington's lost his mind from Banker Thorpe, puffing his cigar. During a lively square dance, rival rancher Eli Whitaker Tall, mean-eyed, with a grudge over disputed grazing land, pulled Maria to close, his breath reeking of whiskey. "Fancy yourself a lady now, foreigner. Bet you dance better in the old country barns." Luke's intervention was swift. his hand on Ellie's shoulder like iron. Back off, Whitaker. She's with me. The exchange heated, voices rising over the music. The night ending in an uneasy truce as folks averted eyes. Outside under the moon, Maria trembled against Luke's side. They see me as nothing, Luke. Dirt under boot. He pulled her into the shadows, cupping her face. To me, you're everything the light after 5 years of dark. Their embrace deepened. Passion flaring like wildfire. Hands exploring in the cool night air. Hearts pounding in sync. Dawn brought the posse. Mayor Harlan no relation to me. Thank God, Banker Thorpe and stern Judge Ellis. Riding up to the ranch like a Judgment Day tribunal. Luke, we need words, the mayor boomed, false joviality masking steel. From the bunkhouse, I watched as Luke stepped out, coffee in hand, his stance relaxed, but eyes hard. About what? Gentlemen? Upholding standards, Judge Ellis intoned. Montana's pushing for statehood. We can't have scandals dragging us down. Banker Thorpe leaned forward. That immigrant girl's a mistake, Harrington. Damages your standing and ours. Luke's voice dropped low. Dangerous. You telling me who I court on my own land. The mayor shifted. Advising, son. Choose respectability. Luke's fist clenched. You got 10 seconds to ride out before I forget hospitality. They left, tails tucked. But the threat hung like gunsmoke. That night, in the study lit by a flickering lamp, Maria approached Luke as he stared into his whiskey. I hear them. Luke, I leave. Not ruin you. The words struck him like a lash. Like hell you will. He rose, pulling her close, their kiss desperate, fueled by fear and longing, carrying them toward his bedroom amid crashing thunder from another storm. As clothes whispered to the floor, her skin golden in the light, a gunshot shattered the window rustlers, tipped by rivals like Eli, raiding the herd under cover of night. Half-dressed, Luke grabbed his revolver, charging into the dark, bullets whizzing past as he exchanged fire with shadowed figures. A graze burned his arm, but he drove them off, Maria waiting with bandages, her hands steady on his wound. This my fault, she whispered, guilt etching her face. The raid claimed several cattle. A note nailed to the gate. Send the wench packing. Luke's resolve hardened like forged steel. We'll fight together, Maria. But come dawn, she slipped away, valise in hand, hiking toward town. Her heart breaking with every step, Luke pursued on horseback, catching her on the dusty trail. You're my heart now, he pleaded, dismounting to hold her as she sobbed. They'll destroy you. But before more words, the second danger struck, a flash flood from sudden mountain rains, sweeping them into raging waters. Clinging to a log, Luke hauled her to safety. Their soaked bodies entwined on the bank, vows whispered in the mud, never part again. And so the push and pull began, love tested in the forge of the West's harsh fires. But little did they know, more trials loomed, shadows lengthening as resentment brewed deeper in town.